Neben sehr vielen anderen Überlebenden haben 50 Menschen
Alongside many other survivors, 50 people of different countries have made the ritual violence they experienced public. To explain, the issue of satanic ritual violence is about the most atrocious crimes committed by members of occult groups, often in the context of satanic ceremonies. Thousands of survivors, victims, witnesses and therapists around the world report of sexual abuse, torture and even ritual sacrifice. According to them, these crimes are committed by a well-connected and well-organized elite group of perpetrators who know how to protect themselves. In collaboration with the producers of the project 50 Voices of Ritual Abuse, these 50 survivors describe their very personal experiences in their videos. Around 10 hours of film material was created from these witness reports. In this program, we would like to give a brief insight into these many individual and yet always similar fates. The reports show that these things are not limited to distant countries. Rather, it becomes clear that these acts of violence are taking place on almost every continent. Also right before our doorstep, here in Germany, Switzerland and throughout Europe, we have marked the places the 50 witnesses report of on a world map. Many of them were not only ritually abused in one place or subjected to cruel mind control procedures, but were passed around several countries. This is why many names of survivors appear in several places on the map. Just by looking at this world map and the names, it becomes clear that the perpetrators must often be internationally well-connected rings. It should be said from the outset that the following brief descriptions and lists only cover a small fraction of the things that the victims, the survivors of these atrocities, had to endure according to their own accounts. You can see the complete contents on the website www.50voices.org. You can find the link below the program and in the credits.
At what age did the witnesses experience the abuse?
Most of the 50 surviving witnesses of satanic and occult rituals experienced their martyrdom at a very early age. Many were already being sexually abused as babies or small children. By the age of 8 or 9 at the latest, the permanent use of violence, torture, sexual abuse and manipulation began for the others who had not already been abused as infants. The reason for this? The trauma-based split of consciousness is only possible at a young age. In this way, the children in the cult become the next generation of perpetrators and are conditioned for special tasks, such as child prostitution.
Through whom did the survivors end up in the abuse circles?
Many of these people were directly born into occult, pedophile or satanic cult families or clans. In this context, Freemasons are
both sides of my family are of royal blood. Particularly my father's is of English. Pretty high up in the royal line. So I believe that was part of why I was targeted. And my family has, on both sides, political connections. So there are many possibilities on how this all got started. And I feel it probably goes back generations for sure.
Anneke from Belgium talks about a couple that had connected closer to the family. They then took them to an international intermediary for satanic networks. A witness from the Frankfurt area in Germany says that she fell into satanic circles through her father's employer. This employer was the head of a large German bank. A witness from Switzerland, Eva Frey, came in touch with satanic circles during a stay at the hospital in Lausanne through its staff. Others tell of adoptive parents, educators or school board members, or clergymen in churches who introduced them to satanic cults.
Glorification of Satanism, what is currently happening worldwide?
Survivors often speak of satanic circles, satanic rituals, satanic cult families into which they were born or introduced. The most heinous and unimaginable atrocities, including cruel human sacrifices, are being carried out in these circles. And right now, people all over the world are trying to portray Satanism as fascinating and appealing. The internet is teeming with offers for clothing with satanic motifs, occult accessories, and devilish tattoos. Music videos and feature films show the most disgusting satanic scenes and gruesome rituals without these videos being censored or blocked in any way. In our national parliaments, exhibits of paintings by extremely questionable artists such as Swedish Lina Brigada Conquest Tunström or Bernhard Prinz are being shown. Both do not shy away from depicting ritual violence in their works. The deviant and disturbing depictions by Serbian performance artist and high-grade Satanist Marina Abramovic have also been hailed as art in the media for years. You could trivialize it by saying it's just art and fashion, it's just clothes, pictures, tattoos, videos, etc. However, the statements of the 50 survivors of satanic occult rituals show what lies behind the satanic ideology. For this reason, we do not conceal from our audience the atrocities the victims of 50 voices had to suffer. Therefore, our warning, these descriptions are nothing for the faint-hearted and especially not for children and young people under the age of 18. Nothing for the faint-hearted.
What did the witnesses have to suffer as victims?
All the witnesses were first and foremost victims of sexual and ritual abuse, rape, death threats, and very often torture. Also, group rapes were common during larger rituals that many of the witnesses experienced. Many others, such as Chantal Frey from Switzerland, Luna from the USA, and Natalie from Germany, tell of cruel hunts for children that they barely survived. These were mostly held in forests by people from elite circles. David was passed around Europe and experienced such hunting scenes in the tunnel system under the Westminster area. He was sold as a sex slave at the age of 4 and abused in the Vatican, among other places. Others, like Christine from the USA, had to serve as sex slaves for priests as a child. Asia Rain is also from the USA and as a child was destined to become the property of a high-ranking Mormon. She experienced the most cruel rituals and ceremonies there, from sexual abuse to almost being drowned to death. Elisa E. as well names the Mormon leadership as perpetrators. Many children, such as Hajar from the German-speaking realm, Kaya from the USA, Erika from Switzerland, and Rachel from Australia, were abused for pornographic films. Some were involved in experiments, were raped and impregnated, sometimes on altars in churches and castles, and had to give birth to children under torture. Sarah and many other teenage girls in California were forced to work as breeder moms, giving birth to babies for sacrifice, and she had to watch as her own baby was thrown into the abyss as a victim. Diana from the USA reports that breeding experiments were carried out on her.
And I was used for in vitro fertilization technology. I was the guinea pig for that. I was used for the Human Genome Project for that kind of experimentation. So I was flown to different places according to my memory recall: Area 51, Stanford University, the Black Forest in Germany, and as we spoke, Westminster Abbey and the Tavistock Institute, the tunnels underneath in London, England. I also gave birth to one set of twins in the Skull and Bones building at Yale University. I also have several underground military bases under Washington, D.C.
Other witnesses report they were offered as children. Other witnesses report they were offered as children to various people or rented to them. This applies to Hajar, for example, who was put at the disposal of sadists and Satanists by her pedophile father. Elke from Germany was also sold to a pedophile ring. Jeanette Archer witnessed babies and children being cut open to get a hold of their blood and flesh. She was forced to eat organs. She calls this a typical ritual scenario. Isabel from Germany was raped in a ritual lying on an altar while she was stabbed in the back and shoulders with knives. Kaya from the USA also tells of rapes on altars, in castles and fortresses. During such rituals, she was impregnated and the birth was forcibly induced before the end of the regular pregnancy. Kaya was then forced to take the newborn's life. Others, like Hayes or Katie Groves from the USA, had to take part in snuff films. Snuff videos are live recordings of killings, murders, sacrifices of people. In this case, primarily live films of child killings.
What did the survivors experience as observers? Where did they have to be present?
The witness Anneke Lucas had a terrible experience at the Bilderberg meeting in Belgium in 1972. While she was being raped, another child was being slaughtered in the same room. Many other witnesses also had to watch children being tortured, raped in rituals, or in some cases being brutally killed. The German witness Elisabeth Schäfer reports of the mutilation, hanging, beating, flogging, dipping in hot water, and scalping of a newborn until its death. Christine from Louisiana, Canada, tells of the sacrifice of a baby in the name of Satan by a monsignor and a priest. Lily experienced atrocities in Catholic churches, castles and palaces. She witnessed pregnant women having their stomachs cut open while they were still alive, their babies removed and then disemboweled. Maria had to watch children being cruelly tortured, especially in church settings. Philippa from New Zealand had to be present while people's skin was ripped off their bodies as a punishment. Sue from California witnessed a child being burned at the stake on a campground. Most of the 50 witnesses had to be present when other children were sacrificed. In some cases, their hearts or other organs were cut out while they were still alive. In these satanic rituals, the blood was drunk and the organs eaten by those present who were usually wrapped in cowls. Children were also cooked, and also then the meat and organs were eaten. A witness, Max Lowen, from Italy, had to watch children being sacrificed in a facility below the Vatican. They were cut open alive, and here too those present drank the children's blood and ate their organs.
The ones which I really struggle with now, having sort of developed all the memories of it, were the adrenochrome parties, which I used to have to attend. And where they literally just brutalized babies and very, very young children to develop the adrenaline in the blood. And then obviously then they kill those children and babies to get the blood. And then, you know, they either drank the blood or the really hardcore ones would inject the blood into them. And that is a really bad one, which I struggle with.
A witness from Switzerland, Svali, says that she had to
It's a really bad one, which I struggle with.
A witness from Switzerland, Svali, says that she had to renounce her Christian faith.
I had the experience of walking into a room and everyone I loved was up on a cross. And they told me that they would kill them one by one until I recanted my faith. And I had to watch 6 of them tortured to death in front of me.
Did the witnesses do things themselves under other people's influence?
Evelyn from Switzerland had to cut human flesh in the kitchen of a church. Several female witnesses from the USA were trained as assassins under the influence of others. The witness Anneke from Belgium was trained as bait for child rapists. The men were later filmed abusing children in order to make them vulnerable to blackmail. Most young children did not survive sex with these men. The Swiss woman Karen reports that she had to cut off the penises of 20 to 30 Vietnamese refugee boys with the initial help of the perpetrators. The further details of this satanic ritual are so unimaginably cruel that we will not go into it anymore here. The boys all died afterwards. Doug from Australia tells how he had to kill a girl from the same age with a knife when he was 3 years old. One perpetrator guided his hand doing so. Chantal Frey from Switzerland was forced to kill a friend with a gun, who then died in agony before her eyes. Her father in the cult also forced her to kill her own sister. Thankfully, she survived the most serious injuries. Elisabeth Schäfer from Hesse and Lily, also from the German-speaking realm, were forced to murder newborn babies. Laura from Bavaria was also forced to kill a baby still attached to the umbilical cord with a gun to her head. It was a satanic ritual murder, as she describes it. Hayes reports,
They wanted me to take a knife and to hurt one of the children. At the end, it was my grandfather holding my hands and killing this child.
Mary Sparrow from the USA reports something similar.
And then they told me I was given a knife and I was told, oh, I have to help kill the boy. And I refused. And they said to me, if you do not obey, we will continue to kill children in this way until you do. So I felt I had to help or else other children would die.
Philippa from New Zealand had to drink sacrificial blood and eat the victim's cooked flesh. After the ritual, she had to clean up everything perfectly and bury the dead on the grounds of the ritual site. Nina from Switzerland sometimes had to help dismember the bodies of the victims of ritual violence and then throw them into acid barrels. She says they have whole appliances in which they dispose of the children.
How do you get children to do such terrible things?
Most survivors speak of abuse and violence from an early age on. These include manipulation, psychological pressure, torture such as electric shocks and waterboarding, beatings and the use of violence, death threats, rape, confinement in cages, often for days without food or drink. The use of drugs has also been mentioned. And there's yet another way to get children to do things they would never actually do. The perpetrators put the children under massive pressure by threatening them with violence against beloved animals or people. This goes as far as killing beloved animals, or cruelly torturing or killing people close to them if the children don't do what the perpetrators tell them to do. The blame is then placed on the chosen child, according to the motto, if you had obeyed, the child or animal would have been spared this suffering. This is repeated until the child finally obeys. Ellie Harrison, who herself suffered sexual abuse and violence from an early age on, summarizes the testimonies of many of the victims she has worked with as follows.
For me personally, For me personally, just hearing these testimonies, some of the most awful things is realizing these toddlers are essentially trafficking victims. They've been raped by multiple adult perpetrators in their world whom they loved and trusted. I mean, these were their only protectors. The people charged with protecting and defending them were the very ones exploiting them and abusing them.
Which environment did the actions take place in?
As crime scenes, many survivors repeatedly mentioned church facilities, administration buildings, a novitiate, the churches themselves and the vaults below, as well as the sacristies. Military bases, some of them underground, for example MacDill Air Force Base, are described as crime scenes. Hospitals, such as the one in Lausanne or the Valley Forge Army Hospital in the USA, have played a role in rituals or mind control tortures time and again. Premises underneath US universities and colleges are also mentioned, as well as rooms under the ancient town Solothurn in Switzerland. In the USA, New Zealand and Australia, large remote estates are often described as crime scenes. Gloria Masters, for example, speaks of a large Masonic country estate in West Auckland, New Zealand.
Then we would be taken into the main chamber, and there we would be laid out in a ritualistic format, like a compass with points on it, and then the chanting would begin. So that was a typical example for me. That was a very common occurrence once a month at the Freemasons, and then other times throughout the year at specific events they would hold. So that would be more likely to be rural or out in the country.
In Europe, it tends to be castles and palaces that are repeatedly mentioned in the testimonies. The Wewelsburg and the castle in Heidelberg are often mentioned. Westminster Abbey and a tunnel system underneath are also mentioned by several survivors. A British Crown estate, as well, appears to play a major role in the satanic rituals. The Vatican and its underground facilities have been named several times as the scene of the crime. Swally, Max Lowen, and David had horrible experiences there. Villas, large magnificent houses and remote hunting lodges also play a role in the descriptions of the survivors of satanic ritual ceremonies and sacrifices.
Let's move on to the perpetrators. Who are they?
In addition to family members, the perpetrators are mostly high-ranking representatives from church, politics, business, and academic circles. But the high nobility and even royalty are also often mentioned in the testimonies. The people named range from a Catholic priest to a monsignor, bishops, and a former head of Pro Familia. Mormons, Jesuits, and the Catholic Church are mentioned again and again. Even high-ranking Vatican officials can be found in the lists of ritual murderers. The head of a major German bank is named as a perpetrator, as are people from the oil business and celebrities from the music and film scene. The survivor Rachel Vaughan from Australia named her own father as perpetrator, who was a Freemason and Rosicrucian and an employee of the Australian Secret Service. Rachel also talks about why so little of this comes to light, even though many know about these terrible things.
One particular ritual, a baby was murdered and then eaten. And there were probably about 50 adults there, and probably around 9 of us children. And people find that very difficult to understand. How is that possible? There would have to be some major conspiracy cover-up for all of those adults to keep this quiet. Well, it's a bonding ritual for them all. They all have information on each other. They have this, compromising material. It's well known, the names of the people who are involved, very high up, businessmen, judges, powerful doctors. They've never been brought to justice.
Other perpetrators from politics are named. For example, a Belgian defense minister, US vice presidents and diplomats, a prime minister from the UK, and senior government officials from Ireland and New Zealand, for example. According to statements, the Queen was also involved in a ritual murder. Global networks are frequently reported. This confirms the fact of victims often having been passed on to diverse countries and experiencing the same mind control procedures. Masonic lodges, the Rosicrucians and other occult groups very often play an important role in this.
So I did spend some nights with a baron, and I just, by chance, pure chance, survived that. And and at 9 years old, a very strange situation really got me into a different position, you could say, that someone from the global network now, like so far I'd been a throwaway child in the Belgian network, and the boss of that network, he was the Minister of National Defense at the time. He gave me to an international networker. This was around the Bilderberg meeting of 1972, and I was 9 years old.
What was the worst thing for the victims?
We picked two examples which show these things have taken place and are still taking place in the highest circles.
And I would say the other worst thing for me was watching children be sacrificed in the Vatican, watching them be brought in and watching them be cut open, and watching all the VIP people in the room they do these sacrifices to invite demonic entities to inhabit them. And that was, for me, to see evil itself was something that also still haunts me to this day.
Drinking of the blood and eating another person's flesh, that was pretty horrific. Well, not pretty horrific, very, very horrific. And the smell of burnt flesh, I will never forget that. They burnt the bodies as well. And then one in particular, or particularly the Queen chopping another girl's head off. She was a similar age to myself. And knowing that I would be next if I disobeyed, if I didn't go along with it.
Conclusion.
Although for decades there have been numerous witness testimonies, such as in the documentary film 50 Voices, attempts are still being made with all efforts to keep these atrocious crimes under wraps. The producers of 50 Voices write about this.
In 2022-2023, groups of perpetrators tried again, this time starting from Switzerland, to manipulate public opinion and make the victims of these violent crimes appear untrustworthy, using the proven method of satanic panic, false memory propaganda.
For explanation, the strategy of satanic panic propaganda means that the whole issue of satanic ritual violence has been denied for decades and decried as satanic scaremongering or hysteria. The second strategic approach of false memory propaganda has also been used for a long time to spread the idea that satanic ritual abuse does not exist. Therapists would only persuade patients that they had experienced such terrible cruelties as part of satanic rituals. These circles do not provide a justification for why therapists around the world should do this. A new wave of media propaganda is currently underway, in this case also emanating from Switzerland, and this time with a different approach. Various Swiss and German media are increasingly reporting on the so-called Reichsbürger scene, whose members have been reported to have attempted overthrowing the German government. These subversives are said to have come up with crude conspiracy theories, incite the population to overthrow the government.
The media described the reports of underground tunnel systems in which children are said to have been abused by elite circles on a large scale as absurd theories.
Here the topic of satanic ritual violence is not only ridiculed, but is beyond this connected to a movement that is being associated with the plans of overthrowing governments. And parallel to the obtrusive media propaganda, Satanism is being aggressively infiltrated into society like a fashion trend. Satanism is considered hip and trendy, fascinating, and harmless. However, the fact that it is anything but harmless is not only proven by the testimonies of survivors heard in the documentary 50 Voices of Ritual Abuse. Lois Sazek gave 137 victims and 77 witnesses a chance to speak in 2 documentary films alone, the survivors additionally mentioning 50 perpetrators by name. If society does not realize shortly that unimaginable violence, perversions and and cruel excesses are hidden behind the polished facade of this Satan ideology, this will most likely result in fatal consequences. After all, according to survivors, the influential satanic circles are pursuing a long-term plan that affects us all and threatens our freedom. For example, Albert Pike, the founder of the Church of Satan and 33rd degree Freemason, as Brigadier General and Grand Commander of the Supreme Military. For example, Albert Pike, the founder of the Church of Satan and 33rd degree Freemason, as Brigadier General and Grand Commander of the Supreme Military, planned and gave order for World War I and II 154 years ago. The goals to be achieved with the first two world wars have been reached exactly. The power of the Tsar in Russia had to be smashed by the first one in order to transform this country into a fortress to atheist communism. The Second World War had to emerge from the differences between fascists and Zionists in order to destroy Nazism and strengthen political Zionism. The aim of World War II was to establish the State of Israel. And this Satanist is also announcing a Third World War.
A Third World War would have to ignite between the political Zionists and Palestinians or the leaders of the Islamic world.
The influential Satanist Aleister Crowley puts it this way in the fourth volume of his book series Magic in Theory and Practice on page 88, that the whole planet must be bathed in blood. This great war would have to be fought because it is said to be a magical operation of utmost importance. In the same book, this Satanist describes on page 87,
the bloody sacrifice has been from time immemorial been the most considered part of magic. Therefore, for the highest spiritual working, one must accordingly choose that victim which contains the greatest and purest force. A male child of perfect innocence and high intelligence is the most satisfactory and suitable victim. For nearly all purposes, human sacrifice is.
KLA TV urges to take the testimonies from 50 Voices of Ritual Abuse and our documentary film seriously and not to fall for Satanist propaganda. Spread these programs and documentaries to your friends, acquaintances and relatives so that this insanity can be stopped by an awakening of broader parts of the entire population. Finally, we would like to encourage all those affected, the survivors of satanic ritual violence and all victims of abuse, to be encouraged to share their experiences with people who will listen to them and take them seriously, including our editorial team.